The most famous ship ever, the one that almost no one on Earth hasn't heard of its story and the tragedy it faced, the British ship RMS Titanic, whose first voyage was also its last. It sank to the bottom of the ocean under mysterious circumstances with hundreds of passengers on board, and only a few survived. It was one of the largest human catastrophes the world has ever witnessed, affecting communities everywhere, whether near or far. Even today, over a century after the heartbreaking event, many people are still impacted by the tragedy. One question that keeps coming to mind is, why haven't we brought the Titanic up from the ocean yet, especially now that humanity has the equipment and modern submarines capable of doing so? Raising such a unique ship would be a huge event, potentially easing some of the painful memories associated with the disaster. Moreover, salvaging it could help us better understand the precise reasons behind its sinking and thus avoid similar fates for future sea voyages. Welcome to our channel, Wonders of Secrets, and in this episode, we'll be answering the question, why haven't we recovered the Titanic from the ocean yet? Before we start, if you're new to the channel, don't forget to subscribe and activate the notification bell to stay updated with our videos. Titanic, often dubbed the unsinkable giant, was a ship surrounded by grand claims. Built by the British company White Star Line to compete with other large vessels produced by rival companies, the Titanic, upon its debut in 1911, surpassed all other ships of its time in luxury, sturdiness, and alleged unsinkability. It became a symbol of size and magnificence. Its size was comparable to a massive football stadium. Tragically, despite all these features and the high safety standards it was equipped with, the ship made only one voyage. On April 10, 1912, Titanic set sail from Queenstown, England, heading majestically toward the United States. It spent 4 days at sea without incident, but at the end of the fourth day around midnight, the ship's watchtower sounded the alarm. A large iceberg was spotted ahead. Despite the captain and crew's efforts to steer away, the Titanic collided with the iceberg, which punctured its lower hull. Water flooded in, causing the ship's bow to gradually sink into the ocean. After about 2 hours and 40 minutes, Titanic sank completely. Of the 2,200 people on board, only around 700 survived, while 1,500 perished due to the lack of sufficient lifeboats, making it one of the most famous disasters in history. News about the Titanic's sinking wasn't widespread until a few days later, when the New York Herald newspaper reported the tragedy on its front page, and the news spread like wildfire across the globe. Just as newspapers had enthusiastically covered the ship's launch on April 10th, they were even more fervent in reporting its sinking, with headlines like, "The ship of the wealthy sinks to the bottom," and "The unsinkable ship now lies at the ocean floor." Despite widespread media coverage, the exact circumstances of the disaster remained unclear until survivors and some crew members provided detailed accounts. Once the story became clear, protests erupted in London and other major cities, condemning those responsible for the tragedy and demanding stricter safety regulations for future sea travelers. Still, experts of the time maintained that despite its fate, the Titanic remained one of the safest ships ever built, and its sinking was blamed on the unexpected iceberg collision, something beyond anyone's control. But why has the ship been left at the bottom of the ocean all this time? Was it due to a lack of funds? No. Most of the victims' families were wealthy and could have financed the recovery. Was it due to a lack of equipment? Again, no. Even at that time, there were machines capable of such a task. The main reason was they didn't know where it had sunk exactly. The Titanic didn't sink in a small lake or swimming pool. It sank in the Atlantic Ocean, the second largest ocean in the world. Not only were the exact coordinates unknown, but the ship's wreckage also moved due to ocean currents. Thus, no one could precisely locate it at that time. Despite this, ideas were proposed to retrieve the ship. Some suggested using a giant electromagnet to pull the ship up, while others proposed freezing the wreck with liquid nitrogen, turning it into a massive ice block that would float to the surface like an ice cube. Humanity was eager to recover the Titanic, but unfortunately, two major events halted any plans: World War I and World War II. These wars shifted global priorities away from the Titanic for decades. After the wars ended, discussions about recovering the Titanic resurfaced. Research institutions began creating deep-sea maps and consulting experts. Yet until 1985, all efforts failed. Meanwhile, the Titanic became a cultural phenomenon. Artists, filmmakers, writers, and musicians immortalized it in their works. Then finally, on September 1st, 1985, a joint American-French expedition, led by Robert Ballard, discovered the Titanic's wreck at the bottom of the Atlantic Ocean, about 73 years after its sinking. The team found that the ship had split into two halves shortly after sinking, and the debris was scattered over an area of about 1,600 meters at a depth exceeding 3,800 meters. Around the wreck were countless artifacts, plates, furniture, crates, and metals. While some objects remained relatively intact, the ship itself was severely damaged due to its prolonged stay in the ocean. Despite decades spent searching, the explorers decided not to lift the ship. They placed a sign near the wreck reading, "The ship is severely damaged. Please do not touch," and returned to the surface. Why didn't they try to bring it up? Attempts were made, but it became clear that the Titanic structure had become extremely fragile. Any attempt to lift it would cause it to collapse into dust. Moreover, scientists expect the wreck to naturally disintegrate within the next 40 years, as it's being consumed by a special type of bacteria, Halomonas titanica, that eats iron. Thus, an international agreement was made to protect the Titanic's resting place under UNESCO's Cultural Heritage Framework. The ship remains a protected site at the bottom of the ocean, and sadly, humanity can only watch as it slowly vanishes. In conclusion, while the Titanic itself has never been recovered, many small artifacts and belongings have been salvaged and are displayed in numerous museums around the world, like the Maritime Museum of the Atlantic in Halifax, Canada, which houses pieces of wood, seats, and wheelchairs recovered by Canadian search ships. Finally, one of the strange things that was recovered from the water was a watch belonging to one of the victims. It stopped at exactly 2:00:28, just a few minutes after its owner entered the water, thus remaining a permanent witness to one of the human events where time stopped. So today we have answered the question, why haven't we extracted the Titanic from the ocean yet? As usual, if you have a question that confuses you, write it to us in the comments below the video so we can answer it. If you like the video, don't forget to like and share. And for those who are watching us for the first time, subscribe and activate the bell to receive our videos first. See you in the next episode.